Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at the Solaridian. This is the second of 3 different versions of this kit, but this is the opalescent color version. It's sort of like a iridescent clear color for the armor, which looks really cool. You know, clear color kits, people, can take them or leave them. Some people like them, some people don't so much, but this is one I feel like, whether you're a fan of clear color kits or not, it's hard to deny how awesome this kit looks. So I'm really anxious to build it up for myself and just kind of see it in person. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So first of all, this box is huge, much bigger than I was expecting. Basically, I knew that this was going to be sort of like an MG sized kit once it's assembled, but the box is definitely on the larger side. And as you can see, it's not necessarily in black and white, but kind of close to black and white and kind of reflecting the color scheme of this being the opalescent version. Even though the images on the box don't accurately reflect what the completed model is going to look like because they don't show it with like the clear parts on there. That's basically just desaturated images of the regular version of the kit where the armor is not clear. But it's cool to see the kit in a variety of different poses, and yeah, all the like basically white, what would be white on the box art here is replaced with that kind of pearlescent sort of gradient sort of color. It looks really nice in there. Now right off the bat, opening this up, we're greeted with a mix of some solid color runners, which is to be expected, and then the really important thing is those clear color runners that we have for the armor, and those are going to be in that opalescent, or it's basically, like I said, just like kind of an iridescent clear, sort of like a plain clear with a purple green iridescent gloss coating over it looks like. But let's take a look at our other contents here. We do also have some water slide decals included, quite the large sheet of water slide decals. Looks like it's not quite like a full A4 size sheet, but almost. And there's a load of decals on here, mostly in white, some in gray as well, a little bit of red and a little bit of kind of like a yellowish sort of color it looks like maybe on there, but lots and lots of decal markings, and those look really nice. I should also mention that this kit is actually in 1/72 scale, not 1/100 scale, even though 1/100 scale like Gunpla is what I'm expecting this to be just in terms of like the size, but I could be wrong. It seems like it might actually end up being a little bit larger than that. As for the instruction manual though, there, as you could see, it had the red color version, which is the original color version of this on the front, so it's just using the same manual. They didn't change the cover art for this particular version. But inside it's got all the normal stuff. I do like that it shows you which runners are used for every section of the build. That definitely makes the building process a bit smoother in my opinion. And then at the back of the manual there is also the decal guide showing where all the decals are meant to be placed. There's also this really cool thin metal sort of photo etched nameplate that you have included, and a little piece of 3M double-sided tape to stick this on. I'm guessing this is going to go on the base, but that looks really awesome. Very nice little bonus to have included there as well. Inside here we've also got our pre-assembled metal frame parts. Now, like all parts like this in this type of kit, it's not all metal. It's a mix of metal and plastic parts that are just pre-assembled here for you, basically just to give you die-cast parts for the joints, just to add some strength and some weight into those. And then we've got all the parts here for the base, actual base plate, and some parts in black with some parts being in clear as well. So just based on the size and how substantial that looks, I mean, it's just another indicator of just like how big this kit's going to be. And then just take a look at the clear parts here first. So going through the clear opalescent runners here, this is runner I, and we've got 2 of these, a big runner with a lot of parts on there. You can see how that finish is going to look, and it's going to look really cool once everything's all put together. All these parts are undergated too, by the way, so hopefully that should make the process of cutting them out and removing the nubs on them that much better. As always with clear parts, I would recommend using a glass file for removing the nubs on these, but the finish looks really nice. Next up we got runners L1 and L2. Now, like with a lot of these runners, the L1 and L2 runner are just molded together, because I think for other different color versions of this kit, these would be different colors. For example, this is the L2 runner, this section here, and that would be in a different color from the rest of the L1. Runner M here as well with some really large parts on there, looking really nice. Runners J1, J2, and J3 also combined together, and we've got 2 of those as well. One thing that I am a little bit worried about with these is that it does look like the opalescent color that's sprayed over the top of this might make some of the tolerances not quite right, so we'll see how the parts all fit together once we start putting this kit together. I'm just worried that that coating might mess with the fit a little bit, but hopefully not. Last of our opalescent runners then here, runner K, we also have 2 of. Another quite large runner, so we've got a ton of parts here with this guy. As for the non-clear parts then, a lot of them going to be here in black, like runner B1, we've got 2 of those. Runners C1 and C2, some more parts here in black. Runners D, E1, and E2 here are going to be in just a dark gray, so not quite entirely black, still pretty dark though for those. But then we got a bunch more black parts here on runners F1 and F2, looks like some weapons parts on there. Runner A, which is kind of out of order, sorry about that, but here's the A runner. some big weapons parts on there. Runners G1 and G2 are molded together. We've got 2 of those, look to be like some of the joint and frame type parts, some more weapons parts here on runner H as well. Next up, in this lighter gray color, we've got runner N1 and N2 molded together. We've got 2 of those, and then runner O as well for some more parts here in light gray. And in really nice looking molded silver here, runners P1, P2, and P3. And then in a plated sort of copper kind of color here, like an orangish copper, we have runners Q1 and Q2 molded together there. Should make for a really nice little accent. And last few runners here, runner R is in a clear green there, looks really cool. And then runners S and T are in a molded gunmetal kind of color here, which also does look really nice. So that's it for the runners. All right, guys, and here it is all put together. I gotta say, it ends up looking absolutely incredible. It looks super cool. But I gotta say, it was a little bit of a painful process to get it there. There's a lot of parts, a lot of very pointy parts, and a lot of parts that, because of that coating, were really tight to press together. So there's some pros and cons, but I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, the final product is very, very impressive here. As you can see, I do have one of the shields and the kind of bits there attached onto the shoulder. There's a couple of different ways that you can arm it with the different accessories that it's got included. We'll kind of go through that here now in just a second, but definitely got to be one of the most unique looking kits that I've seen in a long time, not just because of that coating, but the design as well is really quite cool. So let's go ahead and get into it here. So a couple things right off the bat. As you could see there, the kit can stand on its own. That's a lot in part due to that heavy metal frame. And then here at the back, you have the fuel tanks that you can use to help just kind of balance it up if you need to, but you kind of don't really need to. Those end up just kind of almost being a little bit too long, so you kind of have to angle them back far enough, depending on the stance, depending on the pose, whatever. But of course, then we do also have the included stand here. Remember that cool metal plate that we have for this, that just goes right here on the front of the stand, but then here on the top, we do have this part will also open up here. Opens up like that, and you could keep your spare like hand parts in there. I think would be a good fit for inside there. And then you have these 4 little triangle sections here on the top that are also removable. That just reveals a hard point under there. Now there's 4 of those spots, but there's only 3 of these effect stands for what would be the kind of like funnel type looking parts over there on the side. Now there's 3 that are attached to the kit, and that's how it shows it. And there's 3 of these stands for those. That said, there's 4 of them. So you do have a 4th one that you can just kind of use for whatever. You can attach all 4 of them together if you want. More on that in a moment, but each of these basically just has 3 joints, and each of these joints is not movable just kind of on its own. You have to actually take the joint apart and then replace it at a certain spot along these kind of grooves there. So I kind of don't really like this kind of joint because you have to take these apart, and then sometimes you can end up breaking them in the process. So you just have to be like really careful with it. Just they're not very easy to adjust these because you have to pull them apart, you know, and then put them back together in order to adjust the angle on them, which is kind of annoying. Now, in order to actually attach this onto the effects stand, you have to remove this little panel here on the side, and this is how you attach it to the kit as well. They each have that little panel on both sides actually, and then they all have it. So this is how it's going to attach onto the kit, just via like a little ball joint socket right there. But this is also where it's going to plug onto the effect stand there like that. So it'll be flying in that direction, that orientation. Now, you saw I had to use tweezers to take that little panel off, and then for attaching these together, you're also going to need tweezers. If you see this little bit right there, you have to like press it in order to flip it out, and then there should be a little raised edge for you to like use your nail to pull that bit out. But unfortunately there's not, so it's kind of difficult to get this out without, once again, just having to use your tweezers. So use your tweezers or just whatever tool you want to help to get that out. You turn that around and this exposes a little peg like that, and that's how these are going to fit together. Each one has a little flip out peg on one side and then just a hole on the other side, so they just stack into each other. Now the thing about this is that that peg looks very small, thin, and kind of weak for attaching these together. I kind of wish they would have made that a little bit more substantial, because it feels like that's going to be easily broken. So I would be very careful attaching these together and then taking them apart, just because the peg in between that holds them together is pretty small and frail there, it looks like. And then just back to the base here for a moment. You can't actually adjust the angle of this, but you can only really adjust it to move up and down. So you can move it up and down there, and then at the top you can adjust the angle. This is the kind of push button one where you have to push that in here on the side in order to move this, and then you push it back the opposite way to lock it into place there, and this is going to plug into the back of the kit there like that. And I will say that I like the size of the base. I mean, it's got some nice detail on it. Usually bases are not going to be very colorful. I mean, it would be nice if it had a little bit more kind of color separation, but you're just going to have to paint it if you want that. But the size is nice in that it's not like ridiculously huge. The kit is quite large though. In terms of overall head height, it's coming out to about 24 centimeters to the top of the head, and then a little bit more if you include the accessories and everything. So it makes it, you know, taller than the master grade unicorn in destroy mode. Is one of the taller master grades, 1/100 scale, coming out to about 23 centimeters. So this is going to be even taller than that, just to give you a sense of the overall height of this guy. Moving on in accessories to the rifle, then it has a couple of interesting things going on here with this. You do have a clear green part for the little camera bit there at the top. This little fin on the top can also move up and down like that. That's really kind of the only moving part on this. The ammo clip here can be removed, and you can actually remove this part here like this to see the actual kind of whatever those are meant to be, grenades or whatever inside there. I guess they're probably just meant to be more like little kind of batteries almost or something. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, this will attach into the hand and then also onto the back of the arm. So there's a little panel on the back of like the elbow of the arm you're going to remove and then replace when this is plugged into the arm. So it should be like a pretty substantial connection there for that, which is nice. And you can see it's got one shield attached onto one of the side. Basically on the shoulders, you have these two attachment points there, but you actually have two of those shields. So you could have a shield on each side. The shield is also quite long, coming in like just over 30 centimeters in total length for this. And that's actually not the extended length. So you can just pull this and actually extends out more. There you can see this part opens up like that. Pretty cool gimmick. On the back side, you just have a handle and then the hard point right there for where this attaches onto that hard point on the shoulder, as I mentioned. But a cool design and a good mix of the solid color and also the opalescent parts. Now, one thing here that we'll just take a moment to address, because I'm sure you're all curious about the opalescent clear parts. Now, they are going to attract fingerprints pretty easily. You can pretty easily fingerprint them, but it's not going to be as visible as like a plated, like a gold plated kit or something. But a lot of the nub marks are also going to be visible if you're not really careful. So, and there's, like I said, a lot of parts and a lot of nubs. Now the parts are basically just clear and then coated with that opalescent coating. So you can use a glass file to get rid of the nubs, and that will make sure that those nub marks stay clear rather than being like little white stress marks. But then you're going to file away that opalescent coating on them, so it's kind of like a very difficult process in order to remove the nubs carefully. And basically you just have to just really take your time with it, which I did not like really super carefully, pretty carefully, kind of like 80%. So you will still see some of the nubs here and there, and especially just because like it's clear parts, so it's really difficult to remove those entirely without leaving any kind of blemishes whatsoever. So last of our weapons then going to be this huge double sword, which you can separate into two, but this is when it's connected. Let's see the length on this. This one's actually coming out to be about 33 centimeters in length, and that is with the handle here that connects the two. So you can see this is a combination of those clear green parts there at the top and then a bunch of the opalescent parts. Now, in order to separate this, you kind of have to do a little bit of disassembly of the handle. You have to remove this cap here at the end. And these two parts you have to split apart. Unfortunately, kind of not really a good system, because then it requires you to basically disassemble these parts in order to separate the swords. And so then you have like much shorter handles for when they're separated, and then you have this piece up here at the top that kind of goes in between that you can then just omit that, and then you've got your two individual swords, which are gonna look like that. And so those are gonna just be symmetrical here like so. Lastly then, just to go over the hand options on the kit there, you can see we have these closed fists, and they're all just going to be swappable fixed pose hands here. So you have these open expressive hands. You've got peace sign hands if you wanted to do a more cute kind of pose. And then two different types of weapon hands for the left and the right side. One with just a regular weapon holding hand with a little tab there in the center, that'd be for the swords. And then one with the trigger finger extended, that would be for the rifle. And so then lastly, before we check out some poses with this guy, I just want to talk a little bit about the kit itself. Now, as I said before, and the reason why I got these band-aids on, basically as a joke, but yeah, there is a lot of very pokey, spiky bits that you have to deal with and you have to be careful of. And then yeah, the coating unfortunately does make the tolerances a little tight, especially on any of the parts that are coated. So just something to maybe keep in mind, that you may want to like drill out some holes a bit, or you may want to sand some pegs a bit, especially when you're dealing with those clear parts. Just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through the assembly, and just, you know, anything that you think might be a little tight, maybe just try ahead of time just to kind of make sure that it's going to be, you know, firm in, but not like so tight that it's going to, you know, crush your hand trying to get it pressed together, because there was a couple of parts that were like that were really, really tough to get together. But as I said, due to the metal frame elements, it's super solid. You can basically go like this. You can see nothing's bending or moving on it, so it's really solid. And as far as the articulation goes, it's got all the basic articulation that you would expect for like a modern master grade kit. So it's got all that built in. It is just going to be really firm. Like, I think I could even hold it here by the arm. You can see the arm is starting to move a little bit, but it is certainly quite solid. It's a really unique aspect here to have these kind of weapon attachment points attached onto the side of the shoulder. Those are just attached via a ball joint, and you have a couple of points for articulation there for those. The shield obviously can just be held in the hand rather than attached onto the arm if you want, so you could split that up. The swords can also be attached here onto the side of the arm. You also have attachment points here on the side of the backpack parts. These cannons here at the back are attached via these sub arms there that can move up over the shoulder like that. And the cannons themselves can also come off, and you could have these, I think, let me see here, you could probably have these going off on their own as sort of funnels as well on your attachment parts here, on your effect parts, if you wanted to have those just flying on their own and not actually attached to the back. So a lot of versatility in terms of like how you want to attach the equipment. There's basically 2 hard points on the backpack and 1 hard point here on the side of the shoulders, and then obviously the swords and the rifles can be handheld as well. So the rifle is actually the only accessory that you kind of don't have anywhere else to put it other than just in the hand. So you might want to just keep that in the hand and then have your other accessories, you know, placed around in different spots. So overall here, just to wrap it up, taking a look at a few poses with this, there's a lot of kit here, and it was a very lengthy build, like I said, just because number one, you have to go slow just because of the clear parts, and you don't want those nub marks to be too bad on those, so that's going to slow down the process a bit. And then it's just the fact that there's just a ton of parts. So this is definitely a very lengthy build. And you know, some people like that, some people don't, but I see it as adding value so long as the process is enjoyable. And with this, it was kind of mostly enjoyable. I will say, like I said, there were some tight parts, there were some parts that, you know, you just have to be so careful with the clear parts. That does tend to get tedious, but I think this is just one of those examples where, I mean, you can't argue with the results, and the kit ultimately at the end, you know, it looks super cool, it's super unique, it looks really interesting with that opalescent coating on it. So it's definitely one that I think is going to look really good in your display, but it's going to take some effort. And if you're not really up for that, there is the red version, and then there is the Evangelion colored version, the kind of purple colored version that's coming out in the future as well. So I think those ones should definitely be a much easier build process, just because the parts aren't going to be plated on those, and so you won't have as many issues getting the parts to fit together that you had like with this particular version. But with this version, I mean, it definitely has an even more unique look to it. So I mean, there's definitely pros and cons between the versions, something to consider. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. I think this kit is very impressive looking. Definitely, as I said before, one of the most unique looking mecha model kits that I think I've built in a long time. And so if for no other reason than that, I think it's definitely worth checking out. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. And yeah, if you want to check out the kit for yourself, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. Got this and lots of other great stuff there on the website, so check that out. And if you guys did have any other further questions about this, do feel free to let me know. There's kind of a lot going on there, but it's pretty like straightforward as to kind of what you should expect for the articulation. Like I said, it's all, you know, pretty standard for a kit like this, and then all the weapons and everything. You have a lot of great options in terms of how you want to equip everything, but just because it is a lot of kit to pose and kind of take some effort, and everything's very spiky and pokey, you know, it's kind of a little bit difficult to change the poses. And so hopefully seeing it in a few different poses here kind of helps you guys to decide maybe which pose you're going to want to display it in, and so you can kind of build it for that one particular pose and then just leave it alone and not have to worry about changing the pose later, because it might hurt your hands a little bit. But other than that, guys, cool kit, check it out. Hope you enjoyed the video here today. If you did, make sure to leave a like. If you do want to, make sure not to miss any future videos. Of course, you can subscribe as well. Really appreciate your support. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, see y'all later. Bye.